You probably have heard by now over the weekend, Marcel Brooks informed the LSU football coaching staff that he's leaving, that he's entered the transfer portal. This is disappointing. There's no way around it because this is a guy that the coaching staff has been so high on. Ed Orgeron, if you remember, Marcel Brooks from the Dallas area, Flower Mound, Texas to be exact, was a consensus 5-star recruit a year ago. The 24/7 composite had him as the number 2 outside linebacker in the country. He was the number 32 overall prospect. 24/7 Sports had him as the number 17 overall prospect in the country. But in the composite, he was number 32. Had offers from everybody. Picked LSU over Bama, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, A&M, and others. So this was a major recruit that Ed Orgeron landed, and he was tailor-made for the 3-4 defense as an outside linebacker. Last year, as a freshman, 6'2", 195, played in 11 games, did not make any starts, but a guy that was clearly athletic enough to get off the edge and was going to be the next Caleb Von Chasson in the 3-4. Well, we know what happened. LSU switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and that's probably where some of the ambiguity for Marcel Brooks came in. Look, earlier this month, it was late last month. It was in May. Ed Orgeron did his weekly visit on off the bench, and they went position group by position group throughout this shutdown. And this is what he said about Marcel Brooks when they were talking about linebackers.
We have to put him on the field. The guy's a force on the field. He's fast. He can make plays. He's very aggressive. We're going to put him as stack linebacker right now. He's learning it right now. He's doing very well. He's up to 210 pounds. This guy's one of the fastest players on our field and plays defense the way it ought to play. I think he's going to have an excellent year.
The highlight for Marcel Brooks from his one season in Baton Rouge, very likely his sack against Florida, where he did the little leg shimmy dance afterwards, which became a really cool GIF that everybody uses on Twitter. And then, of course, he was in the Get the Gat video as well at the White House, which went super viral. But unfortunately, that's the most we'll get to see Marcel Brooks in the purple and gold representing LSU. But you heard Ed Orgeron say there how excited they were about Brooks. And really, on that day, when I was talking about Marcel Brooks, my take was this is a guy that every time the coaches bring up Marcel Brooks, they rave about him. And every time someone asks me who's going to be your breakout players, I always say Trey Palmer on offense and Marcel Brooks on defense because coaches kept bringing him up. Now, my question in part is, were they trying to continue to talk about Marcel Brooks to persuade him to stay? I don't think there's any doubt that they think Marcel Brooks would be a fantastic player, but he was going to be a dynamic outside linebacker in a 3-4, and he kind of got stuck as a tweener in a 4-3. Like, listen to Orgeron when he talked about the linebackers and he went through the depth chart. This is what he said.
At the Mike linebacker, you have Damone Clark. You have Marcel Brooks. You have Antoine Sampa. Those are 3 outstanding football players. I think that when you look at Damone Clark, we're right now, a guy from Sunderland right here in Baton Rouge, 6'2.5", 237. That looks exactly like a big linebacker like we used to see it. Marcel Brooks is one of the best athletes on our football team. I expect him to have a great year. Antoine Sampa, 6'1.5", 206, one of the best linebackers in the country.
Damone Clark, you heard what he said, 6'3", 237, looks exactly like the Mike linebackers we've had come through here. Marcel Brooks, he had running as the second-team Mike linebacker. The problem is if you're Marcel Brooks, you're behind Jabril Cox, you're behind Damone Clark, and you're just undersized. Orgeron said that Brooks got up to 210 pounds this offseason, but he's still a ways away from being your prototype inside linebacker at the SEC level, where Clark's 237 or Jabril Cox comes in at 250 or 240. And then you look at what guys like Devin White and guys who've rolled through this program in the past and played that position and played it so well, they're bigger. The flip side of it is if you're looking at a 4-3 defensive end and you're thinking of the prototype like Danielle Hunter, 6'4", 265, like Marcel Brooks isn't that either. So he's kind of a man without a position in this defense right now, and they were going to have to find a spot for him, and I have no doubt they would have, and they would have gotten him on the field. But if this is a guy who's a former five-star that wants to be an every down player and a day one starter, that probably wasn't going to happen for him this year as they tried to find a new spot. Maybe that spot would be like a hybrid safety type role, which you see Jacoby Stevens playing this year. Well, Jacoby Stevens is back, so Marcel Brooks wouldn't start there either. I guess part of me understands it that when LSU, I'm disappointed but not surprised, because when LSU switched to a 4-3, we talked about this. The players that seemed to be the most affected were guys like Brooks that were the tweener outside linebackers, and then the true nose tackles, Apu Ika and Tyler Shelvin. Now, they were playing true zero technique, head up on the center. Now they're going to kick out a little bit and play in the gaps. So how effective are they? We'll see. I think the tackles are going to do just fine, but because of the size issue, those guys, if you're Marcel Brooks at 210, how effective are you at shedding a 310-pound guard that's getting up into your pads? You know what I mean? So I think that's really the difficult thing for Marcel Brooks that he was staring at this year, and I think they would have found a role for him, but I don't think he would have been starting in 2020, and that's probably what was a big piece of maybe pushing Marcel Brooks into the transfer portal. Now, the very obvious landing spot for Marcel Brooks would be Baylor, right? His former defensive coordinator, Dave Aranda, is the head coach there, tailor-made for that defense in his home state of Texas. But my guess is, if you're Marcel Brooks and you're leaving LSU, you're going to want to play immediately. And if you're going to file for a waiver, a transfer waiver, it's not going to be granted on the basis of, I want to go somewhere that I can start this year. So some of the ear-to-ground rumblings we've heard this weekend are maybe Brooks wants to be closer to home in the Dallas area. Well, if that's the case, and Flower Mound is sort of northwest of Dallas, and north of Fort Worth, then maybe TCU is a landing spot. That would make a lot of sense. If he wanted to be able to play immediately, he might be able to file a petition for a waiver to be able to play immediately. Maybe talk about COVID, wanting to be closer to home. There's a lot of things like that go into decisions like that to allow guys to be able to play immediately, and maybe that's one that Marcel Brooks will throw into the ring to see. Maybe he'll see if he can make that work for him. But it's certainly disappointing for LSU because Marcel Brooks was one of the highest-rated members of last year's signing class. Consensus 5-star, a really fast, athletic kid coming off the edge that was going to be able to be a monster pass rusher. It was just about finding a role for him, and that's probably part of the reason with this defensive switch that Marcel Brooks is looking for a new spot. So we learned over the weekend, Marcel Brooks, former 5-star, has entered the transfer portal. He will likely finish his career elsewhere. Of course, he could decide to remain at LSU. At this point, though, that would seem unlikely. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.